Good evening, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I hope everyone is doing well on this Tuesday evening. This is Sheri right here on the side of the camera from the Papercrafters workshop, and we've got Matt, the Peanut Gallery, across the room, kind of manning the comments, working the technology, and all of that magic stuff. So if you are tuning in, we are going to be we're going to be talking about markers tonight. And I know that this is a topic that often raises a lot of questions, especially if you are not familiar with the various markers that I'm going to show you tonight. I actually have, kind of two different camps of markers that we're going to spend some time talking about, getting to know a little bit. Anyways, please do make sure you put your comments in the chat. Matt will feed the questions to me. If you think of it and can put the word question in great big capital letters at the front, then he can see it easily, but he's got a good eye and can capture those as we go along.
You're assuming
excuse me.
You're assuming I'm going to stay awake.
Matt's assuming that I'm going to stay awake. I think my topic tonight is going to be so riveting. He's going to want to pick up the markers and start coloring himself. That's how confident I am in what I'm going to share with you tonight. So thank you for joining me. If you're joining me live, thank you for making time on this Tuesday evening to join me. If you're watching on replay, also thank you. Hopefully you are going to pick up a few tips and tricks, even if you are a long time colorista, as we call it. We've had some of these markers have been around for quite some time, and I think we're going to have some fun. Personally, myself, coloring is my zen. So some people like to fussy cut, some people like to stitch. I love to color, and I have been coloring with Copic markers for well over 15 years. I was going to say close to 20 years. I'm not sure it's quite 20 years, but one of the very early things that I learned was about coloring, and I have traveled to take Copic classes. I have become a Copic certified instructor, which just means I got to go and color for 2 days and have lots of fun. But Copics can sometimes be a little bit intimidating. They are a little bit more of an investment. So we're going to talk also about our new to us Marvy Le Plume alcohol markers. That's going to be about the first 20. This is going to be about the first 20 minutes. Matt, you can keep me on time if you are keeping an eye on things.
Yeah, right.
He laughs because he knows that I have trouble staying on time. And then over here we have Marvy Le Plume 2s. Le Plume 2. These are a water-based marker, and there are some fun things that you can do with that. So we're going to kind of split our time and talk about these two different coloring mediums. I do also love my pencil crayons, my watercolor pencils, all of those good things, but we're just going to focus on markers this evening. So as I clean up, as I prep for the first half of my presentation tonight, let us know in the comments. Have you ever colored with alcohol markers? Have you ever colored with water-based markers? What do you like to color with? Or is coloring just not something that you have dabbled in? I'm going to actually put these. This is my little pencil case for my markers. I'm going to put them away and dig them out again when it's time for that portion of tonight.
Diane says that she's looking forward to it because she's learned so much from your lives.
Well, I really appreciate that, Diane. Thank you. Thank you very much. So we're going to start with alcohol ink markers. And, they really are what they say they are. They are ink made from an alcohol base. This gives you a lot of blendability because it allows the ink to kind of sit on the paper a little bit and give you some time to blend. And that's one of the real key benefits of an alcohol marker is its blendability and its vibrancy of colors. Now, I was talking about Copic off the top. If you are new and you've never heard of Copic before, Matt, let me know if it's focusing okay.
It took a second, but you got it.
Okay. So Copic markers are made by a company called Too, and they are based out of Japan. They were initially designed for manga artists, comic book artists, and there's a variety of styles of Copic markers as well. We tend to specialize in the sketch marker, which is kind of the mid-range or the middle category, if you will. I'm not finding the right words, but the benefit to the sketch ones is there are actually 358 colors.
A lot.
There's a lot. And so maybe that's a benefit. Maybe that's what makes this intimidating is there are so many different places you can start. And we'll talk a little bit about how to choose your colors and that kind of thing in just a little bit. But with a Copic marker, these are the ones that I started coloring with, and they are my go-to simply because I've colored so much with them. They are, it's all ingrained kind of in my brain, and I have my go-to colors. I have my combinations. When you are coloring with alcohol markers, depending on the size of your stamp, so I've got a couple of different stamped images here. One's a little coffee urn. You probably can't see that. This is from a Hero Arts set called Perk Up. I've also got a teacup from the coffee and tea set. We'll color a stamp and color a couple of different ones. Where was I even going with that thought?
No idea.
No idea. I know. When you are coloring images, depending on how big or how small they are, they do recommend that you pick 3 shades. You want a light, a medium, and a dark marker when you are coloring and shading to build all of that depth and dimension. I'm going to try and not talk too much. It's easier when I show, but there's a couple of key points that I want to get across.
Okay, before you go too much further, so you ask people to say what they get. So a few people have said that they do alcohol and watercoloring.
Okay.
A couple people have Tombow. They really like the Tombow.
Okay.
Donna says that she uses them all, but she struggles with proper paper.
Okay, so we will be talking about paper as well. So if you couldn't hear Matt in the background there, we've got colorers of all shapes and sizes here. Some do watercolor, some do alcohol, some do both. But Donna's main question is around paper, which we will talk about in just a second. Okay. So back to Copic. Maybe I wonder if it'll be easier if I do this, just so I have a solid background here. So Copic markers, as I mentioned at the top, they are an investment. They run about $10 per marker. That's I'm going to say that's intentional because the idea is once you buy a barrel, you should never have to buy that barrel again. Copic is designed, they've got 2 ends. So usually they come with the wedge tip as well as the brush tip. You can get a bullet tip to swap these out, but that's the benefit that you can pull these tips out, these nibs out, and swap them out, whether you just need a new nib for the same color or if you want to have a different kind of finish to it. You can also refill the ink. I meant to bring home a refill tube. Mine are all of an old style, so I don't want to show you those. But essentially, when you're refilling, you just pull out one of the nibs very gently, and then you drip ink back into the barrel and you can refill them. So the general idea is once you buy a barrel, that's your barrel for life. Now, if you lose your barrel, not much I can help you with there, but in terms of everything else, we can definitely help you keep your markers for a good long time. Now, this is the next thing I'm going to talk about is a do as I say, not as I do. You really should make sure that you give your markers a spa day from time to time. Ink will get in and around the cap. Ink will get in and around your barrel here. And if you get too much guck, this one's not too bad. I'm sure I've got some other ones in here that...
You don't need to show off the yucky. Oh.
I do need to give them a little bit of a spa day and clean them up, because that will ensure that your caps are closing with that click. Did you hear that? You always want that click when you're closing it to make sure it's maintaining its seal. To clean it, I simply take some rubbing alcohol and a Q-tip and just try to clean things up. Try to clean up my cap as well. If you stay on top of it, it's a very easy task. I don't, again, do as I say, not as I do. It's a good thing to put on a good rom-com or movie, series, whatever, and just give your markers a spa day when you can. So those are Copic markers, and lots of great ways to really keep it going. The last thing I will call your attention to is each color. And again, I'm going to see if I can get that. Don't know if you can see it out on the end there. There is a numbering system with the Copic markers. Every Copic marker starts with a letter. So R is for reds, pretty obvious. B is for blues. Then there's also blue violet. There's red violet. There's yellow red, which is your oranges. There's a whole series of numbers that helps you not only identify your markers, but helps you find blending pairs. After the letter, there is a number, runs from 0 through 9, obviously. I'm trying to get this right. It is the amount of gray that is in those markers. So something that is a very true and vibrant color, you're going to have a lower number. So 0, 1, 2, all the way up to 9, which means it's a very grayed out and kind of pale color. I meant to grab that. Let me go grab that 1 second. Here we go. My blues are always my best examples. So if you take this one here, this is B18 or B18. That first number, that middle digit is a 1. So you can see it's nice and vibrant blue, compared to this one here where that first number, second digit, is a 9. And look how gray that is in comparison to those two. So that second number is that gradient in terms of grayscale. Your last number is how light or dark. So a 0 will be light and a 9 will be dark. So when I'm looking to blend colors, let me get my reds here. So if I look at these 4, for example, I've got R22, R24, R27, and R29. They're all R's. They're all 2s. So I know right off the bat that these are going to blend well together. Then that last digit, 2, 4, 7, 9, as they increase, they get darker. So if I want to pick a light, medium, and dark, I could drop that one and go like this. Now, having said that, you do want to have your colors be relatively close together. So you might want to try your combinations on paper first, scrap paper, before you actually color an image. You may find that you want to have something a little bit closer in between, but that's where the fun comes in and the little bit of trial and error with your markers. So they've got that whole numbering system in play to help you find those colors.
So when you are trying to pick your colors, you always want to have a light, medium, dark?
It is recommended that you have a light, medium, and dark. And when I get into coloring, that'll make more sense. If you are someone who typically colors little things like lawn fawn, or, well, lawn fawn really is the best example. I've also got this little stamp set here from All and Create. She's got a lot of little areas. There's no way that you're going to get 3 sets of colors in those little areas. So smaller areas you can get away with 2. But as a general rule, you want to be buying in 3s or looking at combinations of 3. This is not the only way to blend. You can go on Pinterest, you can Google, there's all kinds of charts you can get that will give you different color combinations. But at the very basic introductory level, that is the best way to pick your colors so that you've got a nice trio that blend well together.
That tends to be the way with blending inks as well with the ink pads.
Yes, that's a great comparison, Matt. If you're looking at whether it's the Pink Fresh or the Hero Arts that we've got in, where you've got that series of 4 from light to dark, again, you know that they're all going to work together and give you those gradients. Yeah, so you know what? Before I even get into the Marvy ones, let's actually just stamp something and talk about coloring. But before I do that, okay, so what are we going to stamp with and what are we going to stamp on? With alcohol ink markers, you do want to make sure that you have an alcohol ink friendly ink pad. I will tell you 99 times out of 100, I choose black. I like to color with the black outline. And I would say about 85 times out of 100, I choose Memento Black. It's the one that I learned with. It's the one that I feel most comfortable with. But things have changed over the years, and there are actually a number of really great alcohol-friendly inks that are out there.
I think we have like 5 of them right now.
Well, I brought home 4.
Oh, okay.
They're I think there is
Close.
a pink. You know, we've probably got other ones as well. But you've got your Gina K amalgam ink. So the amalgam ink is going to be alcohol ink friendly. And when in doubt, definitely flip things over. This one here says works with alcohol markers, colored pencils, and watercolors. So this one is actually going to work in both scenarios that I'm going to talk about today. But that is a great alcohol friendly one. The Lawn Fawn Jet Black, alcohol marker friendly. And then we've got Hero Arts Intensified Black, also alcohol marker friendly. So if you are ever in doubt, make sure you look at the packaging. They're doing a really great job these days of identifying which are good for alcohol markers and which are not. So what is not good for alcohol markers? Well, we've got the VersaFine Clair, which is a pigment ink. This stays wet too long and it's not going to work well with your alcohol ink markers. It's going to bleed. Definitely do not use StazOn with your alcohol ink markers. That will take your brush tip or your wedge tip and it will turn it rock hard. It will absolutely damage your markers to the point very quickly that you cannot use them again. So do not ever use StazOn with alcohol ink markers. There may be other brands out there. There may be other things out there. I have heard tips where, okay, well, if you use this ink and heat set it, you're going to be fine. To some degree, it depends on where you live, what your climate is, and it's going to talk about paper as well. Your paper also makes a difference. Your best bet is trial and error. If you're ever in doubt, try a little cube before you buy a big pad. It's a little bit more affordable to give it that old college try, if you will. But once you find one you like, stock up on Reinker. I actually have 3 Memento Black pads because A, I tend to lose them. B, I like to have a backup. And C, it's my favorite, so I always like to make sure it works. The other part of the equation is paper. We recommend, so back in the day, the paper I found the most success with was the Neenah Solar White. We've had a lot of trouble sourcing that paper in the last few years, getting it in without it getting damaged and so on and so forth. So we have moved on to the Prism Studios Solar White. And between you, me, and the lamppost, I pretty much suspect that this is Neenah Solar White, just in a Prism Studios package. It works just as well, and I've found a lot of great success with this. The key thing is, and this is again, a do as I say, not as I do, try to keep the packaging. If you open this up, at least put it in a Ziploc bag that labels what kind of paper it is, because I have coloring paper and non-coloring paper, and when it's just on its own, you can't always tell what the difference is. So I have a bin of paper on my rack that is a great big question mark, and I try not to use it for my coloring. I want to make sure. So if you are going to invest, and I mean, 25 sheets for $8.99, pretty affordable investment, but your paper is going to give you the best results.
So what happens if you didn't use that kind of paper for your coloring?
So if you use the wrong kind of paper, Probably the thing you're going to notice most is it just doesn't blend well, or you really have to work it to get a good blend. Um, Again, it'll all come a little bit more clear as I actually get into coloring, but you'll notice the difference. It really does come down to that blendability. If you're just doing single color, or you're just doing a really quick job and you're not as worried about the blend, you can use whatever paper you want. I definitely recommend a smooth finish. I find it makes it a lot easier to color with. And when you're using alcohol marker, do not use watercolor paper, because that's just going to soak your ink in like a sponge and you're not going to get anywhere.
So did you cover off what happens if you use non-alcohol ink friendly stamp black ink and then colored with an alcohol marker?
I maybe wasn't as clear with that. So if you use just a regular black ink, say it's your, or if you use like a distress black soot, what's going to happen is it's going to bleed and it's going to run. So you're going to get lots of black smudgy marks, and it's going to really muddy up your colors. And when the whole reason why you're using alcohol markers is to get nice, crisp, vibrant colors, that kind of works against you. Trust me, I've done it all. And there are times where even when you've done everything right, you might get a little bit of bleeding. I will show you how to kind of clean your tip as well if you get it somewhere that you don't want it to. All right, you know what? Let's just dive in. The last thing I'm going to suggest, and this is a tip, not a product, is when you are coloring with your alcohol markers, make sure you have a piece of scrap paper underneath. It could be your desk pad. It could just be a piece of printer paper. As long as you've got something that's going to actually soak up some ink, because it will, if you're doing it right, your ink will go through your paper. So don't do it on your grandmother's dining room table with nothing underneath. Don't do it on top of your project. Always make sure that you've got, I'm going to say a porous surface. So really scratch paper underneath to color through.
While you're getting set up,
yep.
Have you heard of something called Bristol Smooth paper?
Bristol Smooth is another brand that I believe is a good alcohol-friendly ink. It's not, or sorry, paper. It's not one that I've tried because it's not something that's been available at our suppliers. Sometimes, like a lot of things, I mean, glue is another example. You have to try a few different things to find the one that you like. It is a bit of a personal decision. So I would say start small, buy a small pack of something, test it out, find out if you like it. If you like it, save the packaging, order more. If you don't like it, put it in your, okay, I'm going to use this for something else and try something different. There is a little bit of trial and error, but I will tell you again, I have been using the Nina paper for well over 15 years, and it's my personal favorite to color with. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take this little percolating coffee kettle. Not sure if I'm using the right words. I'm just going to stamp it just as I normally would. And while I'm stamping here, I might as well stamp a couple so we can do a few little demos. Now, in my experience, the memento does not need to be heat set. And that's another thing that I want to say. I personally do not recommend that you use embossing powder with your alcohol markers. The tips of your alcohol markers can suck the color out of embossing powder, and it could damage your nibs. Now, I know other people have done it and had quite a bit of success with it. It's not something that I recommend, so just take that for what it's worth. All right, and let's do. Oh, look how dirty my brown is. Yeah, let's do a brown. Coffee is brown. No, I've got two of the same color. Here we go. So here I am. I've got 4 different shades of brown. Again, so that's the one exclusion or exception to the rule when it comes to Copic coloring or Copic color numbers E is for earth tones. They couldn't use B because that was for blue. So B for brown, not a thing. E for earth tones is where you're going to get your brown shades. So the way I like to color is I like to start with a light coat. So a coat with my lightest color. I'm not going to do that one. I think I'm going to put the E21 aside, but I'm going to start with E23 and I'm going to cover my entire area. And I apologize, I can't zoom. I haven't been able to figure out how to zoom in with my camera. So I will just continue to hold it up as I go along. But I'm just covering the whole area. It got this nice brush tip. It's got a nice soft point to it. Color in my areas. Let's do this bottom part too while we're going. Now, with alcohol ink, you do have a little bit of playtime. And of course, now that we're on camera, I am coloring outside the lines a little bit, but not going to worry about that. So here I've just colored, missed some spots here. But basically I've just put a base coat down here on my surface. Missed a spot there. And that gives me some area to play with. So the best way to imagine doing this is you go light, dark, medium, and light. And we're going to blend these out. So now I'm going to jump to that darkest color, which is E29. And I'm just going to build in some basic shading. I'm not going to do too much complicated tonight. I'm just going to pull it up from the bottom here to give it a nice round look. And again, down from the top here. I tend to like to push away. When it comes to alcohol ink markers, don't scribble back and forth. You always want to try and push in the same direction. And I'm going to push down here.
Oh, this is where you're getting all technical now.
No, I'm just coloring. I could color all day long. So that's what it's starting to look like. And yes, there are some sharp edges. Yes, it doesn't look very pretty. Copic coloring, alcohol ink coloring is a process. So embrace the process and just take your time. You do have a little bit of time to play. You don't want to cover too big of an area. If I was doing this big teacup that I'll do when I get to the La Plume ones, you want to work in sections. But for this little guy, I think we're still pretty safe to cover, a significant area as we go along and be able to play around. So that was E29. I'm going to go to my medium now, which is E25. And I'm always using my brush tip. It's just my personal preference. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start overlapping. So I'm going to come about halfway down where the dark is and pull out outside. So I'm overlapping that color. And what that will do is it will help to blend out those sharp edges. So look how nicely that is going from the light to the medium. Now there's still some sharp edges now where the medium is going into the light. That is again where we then do the same thing. We're going to overlap and pull it out. The way I always like to imagine my ink is that it is a pool of water. And what we want to do is we want to drag the liquid across that top of that pool of the water. So our light was our base. Then we pulled from the puddle and did the dark, pulled from the puddle again into the medium, and pulled from the puddle again to get into the light. Let me just overlap. Yeah, I totally could do this all day long. And again, you're not looking at scribbling back and forth. You're pulling all in the same direction. So I'm pulling from the dark up in that little flicking motion. And if you find that you're not getting the blend you like, then start over again. Go back to the dark again, go back to the medium again, go back to the light.
And if it really gets really bad, stamp your image again.
That's right. That's another reason why you should stamp a couple at a time, because if you do one that you don't like, you can start again. Yep, all right. Making sure I got the right one there. So there, we've got a nice, beautiful blend there happening. Now, sometimes, even if to your best efforts, it still looks a little bit blotchy. My reminder to you is it does take time to dry. The ink will settle out. So go ahead and walk away. Color something else. Go have a snack. Come back. And as it dries, those colors will even out. Now, I did say to you, make sure you have that porous piece, that piece of scrap paper underneath, because if you're doing it right, you should be able to see your ink through on the other side. Now, I can see that, I probably could go a little bit more intense in some of these areas. I'm gonna be intentionally heavy-handed here to show you. You really want to saturate those colors. You want that paper to be nice and dark.
Now, are you always blending, or in some cases you're just coloring in like little spots?
You can be coloring in little spots. Right now, I am intentionally blending. But if you miss a spot, you can go back into it.
But for example, that handle, probably no blending on the handle. It's just going to be colored.
I would still do some blending. I may only do 2 colors on that one. So I might only go with my medium, which is right now going to be my lightest. Then I will go in with that dark and get those really dark shadowed areas and just down under here. I don't usually muck around with the idea of, oh, where is the sun and where is the light source? I tend to keep it very symmetrical, go down each side. And in this case here, I have, when the handle on your coffee urn is there, generally the shadow is underneath. So there we go.
I don't know if you'll get to this when you're doing
this.
The other thing is, Diane is asking, how would you color something circular?
Circular tends to be a little bit challenging, but to some degree, you could say that this is somewhat circular, like it's kind of the bottom of a circle. What's the best way to describe it?
Your teacup's going to be circular.
My teacup is going to be circular. So yeah, we'll get into that in just a few minutes, Diane, when I come back to using the other markers. Couple of other tips, just random. So again, there's my color showing through. If it's showing through, 100% that you are doing it properly. If it's not showing through, you need more ink. Go in, be bold, be heavy, and go to town on that. When I'm coloring, especially if I'm experimenting with color combinations, one thing I will do is, and I haven't done this in a while, I need to get back to it, but I used to have a notebook where whenever I colored, I had my one image for my project. I would color the second image the exact same way and keep it in my notebook. And then what I would do is I will take a pen and I will write, okay, I used E23, E25, and E29. And if I'm really smart, what I'll do is I'll put a little dot. Because you know what? We spend a lot of money on our stamps. We like to use them over and over again, in theory. Yeah, look, see how icky that is? Sorry, I'm embarrassed. But if I just look at this, I can say, okay, yeah, I know it's brown. I know it's my earth tones, but will I remember? Let's be honest, will I remember tomorrow what colors I've used? Well, tomorrow I might, because I probably haven't put my markers away yet. But a week from now, 2 weeks from now, a month from now, if I want to recreate this and I love the color combination, I'm not going to remember. So keeping a little journal, if you will, of what colors you've used and a little, kind of swatch beside it is absolutely going to help you recreate the things that you love. It will also help you not recreate the things you don't love. So say I looked at that, I'm like, no, that looks like it's a chocolate urn and I want it more metallic, then I know not to use those colors again. So it works both plus and minus. The other thing is, if say I used E21, 25, and 29, and I needed something in the middle, That's where I start making a list of what colors I need to add to my collection. Um, when you're looking at buying markers, when you're looking at getting started, I would say pick one project, pick one stamp set that you want to use your coloring on, and decide what colors you're going to use. Especially at Christmas time, reds and greens are a great place to start. If you are someone who likes flowers, you're going to want to get at least some good greens for all your stems and your foliage and your grasses. And then you're going to pick one or two colors, so maybe a pink and a purple, to do all of your blues. Start there. And then I always recommend, and whether it's markers or ink pads or pencil crayons or cardstock colors, if you are doing a project and you're like, gee, I really wish I had a dark yellow, write it down. Every time you say, gee, I wish I had a dark yellow, put a tick mark beside it. When you get 2 or 5 or 10 tick marks beside it, you know that that's a color that you really gravitate towards and want to use. If you only write it down once, then odds are it was very project specific, and you might be better off investing your money in another color combination. All right, so that is Copic markers. And I'm probably well over my 20 minutes already. So you know what? Let's talk a little bit about the Mardi La Plumes, and then we can still move on to the watercolor ones. So Mardi La Plume is very similar to Copic in that they are alcohol ink markers. They do have a numbering system on the top. It's a little bit different, but it's the same general gist of it. So you've got G's for green. You've got 662, 668. So that's a light and a medium. If I want one in between, no, 660. So I've got 660, 662, 668, which would be a light, medium, dark of those same colors. And then this one is 365 combinations. So you're going to get at least 2 sets of 3 in each pack. These are sold in packs, at least in our store for right now. And we do have that color collection. So we have a green set. We have a pink set. Let me find my list here.
A whole bunch of sets.
We have an orange set. We have purples. We have reds and blues and so on. So they work very similar. Now, these are only single-ended, so they only give you that brush tip. Sorry, let me find. They only give you the brush tip, which I will tell you, I use my brush tip more often than I use my wedge, so that really doesn't bother me. You will notice that some of these have a gray barrel and some of these have a black barrel. That is just window dressing. They have, and I think, now I can't remember. I think the gray is the new branding. The black is the old branding.
I thought it was the other way around.
It could be the other way around. I probably have it wrong. But that's all it is. It just means that they've changed from the new barrel to the old barrel. So let's stamp out our teacup and we'll talk about that. What else is different? They're not double-ended. They are not refillable. So when your marker dries out, you're going to have to buy a new marker.
But
they're a great, if you're trying to figure out if coloring is something you're going to be into, then it's a great starter set. I believe Darlene got some of them as well because she wanted a travel set. So if you are traveling, on vacation or to the kids swim tournaments, that kind of thing, you don't want to take your super expensive ones, but you still want to color, then the Mardi ones are a great backup plan.
Darlene sits at her kids' soccer games
and colors. Yep. Yep. All right. So here we go.
Make sure you say nice things. She's listening or watching.
I always say nice things.
She says the black ones are the newest.
The black ones are the newest. Okay. Thank you, Darlene. I knew it was one way. I had the other, and I knew I would get it wrong. All right. So just like with the Copics, we are going to make sure we have our paper underneath. I'm going to grab my little handy dandy magnet to hold it from sliding around. And let's grab, I think I like the 5 series better. So it's those ones and those ones. So I have, and let's go ahead and write these down before we even get started. So I have G 653, 656, and 658. Do a little swoosh, a little swoosh, and a little swoosh. Did I get them wrong? No, I didn't. So at first glance, the 656 is a little bit darker than the 658, but as we get blending, I'm sure it will all work out. So let's start with our lightest color. And I'm only going to do a section, but this will hopefully help answer Diane's questions as well. So I'm just going to color in a large area. Oops, and I colored outside the lines. Always going in one direction, not the band. And don't worry if you can see brush strokes, because as the paper gets saturated, those brush strokes will disappear. So that was my light. Now I'm going to go with my dark. And when I'm doing something circular like this is just my thing. Again, I don't worry too much about light sources. But if you think about, if you've got something round, which apparently I don't here, you got something round, the light's going to be hitting it from the top. The underside is always going to be darker. So that is your shadow. So I will start from the bottom and build out my shadow. Just along the bottom there. And it's going to be a little bit more. And boy, I'm coloring way outside the lines tonight. It's because y'all are watching.
And you're trying to rush.
And I'm rushing. So hopefully, you know what? I know Matt always likes to watch the time. If you are happy sticking around with me, we'll just keep on coloring. All right, now I'm going to go to that middle one. I'm going to overlap and pull. Overlap and pull. And again, always flicking into the same direction, not going back and forth. And then back to my light. And we'll blend that out.
That's why coloring classes always take forever.
Well, I know when my friend Jen Shirkus does a coloring class, does a class, generally the coloring takes as long as the card assembly. But since that's my happy place, I don't usually stress about that. All right. So these ones might take a little bit more work to blend out some of those edges, but just so you can see, you've got that gradient coming. Now you can see there is a little shiny spot. And it's vanishing. It's just there was a lot of ink on there, so it is soaking into the paper. What's the magic? Ooh, look at that.
A lot of ink.
That is a lot of ink, and that's okay. This is what we're trying to do. Let's go back to the dark and just see if we can smooth out some of this. That middle green was quite intense. And then back to my light, just to... I will say that, in answer to Diane's question, how do you color something round? How do you color, how do you think about light sources? I wouldn't stress too much, because if someone receives a card or a project from you and they're like, you know what? I really think if the sun's over here, your shadow would be over here and what you've done is wrong. Then the answer to them is, thank you, I will take that card back. You really just want to focus on even blends. I try to make sure that my lightest color, I tend to do lightest color in the middle, darker around the sides and bottom. That's just my style. That's years and years of practice, and not one person has ever complained that I have colored the light source wrong. So
I've thought it, but I've never complained.
Yeah, so he says. So the key really is to have fun with your coloring. If you don't like it, simply stamp it again and try something different. Make yourself notes. If you've got this as your, in your notebook, you say, you know what, didn't like shadow at bottom. Because 3 months from now, when you go to color this again, that's going to be your reminder. It's like, oh yeah, I really didn't like that. Or I said I didn't like it, but what the heck was I thinking? I actually love it now. Just have fun with it. I could go on and on about coloring with Copic or with alcohol ink markers. I find them fun. Now, I have been asked in the past, Do these have an odor? Do they have a scent? I would say there's enough of a scent that I can sort of smell it, but it's not like I'm, sniffing the marker. So generally you're okay. You don't need ventilation. You don't need anything special. But you've got lots of options to just have fun coloring with that. So if you like this, if you like to learn more about alcohol ink markering, I can absolutely extend from here. But in the meantime, just give us thumbs up. Give us I love to learn about alcohol markers. And if you try it, even if you just pick up one, put it in the Papercrafts inner circle and let us know how you work out with that. Because again, there's way more that I can cover off than in just 15, 20 minutes, which has actually now been 45. Okay.
Were you only supposed to do 20 minutes on alcohol?
Yeah, I know. I thought it was
20 minutes on the first section.
No. Well, the first section was alcohol.
Maybe we should have just done 2 learning lives. One about alcohol markers, one about.
You know what? Let's just call this our teaser, and we'll just have to come back for more. Okay, so the next ones are the Marvy Le Plume 2, version 2.
The water-based markers.
These are water-based markers. Let me just try and pull out just a few colors. And again, with the Marvy Le Plume 2s, we have 8 different sets of 6. There's different colors. And with these ones, I think you have to worry less about blending combinations and just more about thinking what you would use them for. All right, I've got lots of colors here. Apparently, I don't have a red. That's kind of what I was looking for, but let's plop that one down there as well. So imagine that you have taken your distress ink, your water-based ink, any of the things that you have used to stamp with, and put it into marker form. That's what these water-based markers are about. They do have a double end, and I think someone earlier had said that they like Tombow. Tombos are incredibly similar, if not the same, other than the brand that they use, and of course the color palettes. That's really the number one thing that's different between the different brands is the different color palettes and how many colors you have. There is a brush tip. There is also a really teeny tiny, whoops, sorry.
It's not focusing.
Really teeny tiny kind of bullet tip, which you can use for detail work. Now, these are a little bit different that, yes, you could take, and let's just take one of these guys. I can just take my pen, and I can color. These ones will not blend very well, especially on this paper. Because they are water-based, they are immediately soaking right into your paper. So if I tried, here's a lighter one, if I tried to blend it out, all it's going to do is pill and wreck my paper. So if you're coloring direct to paper, these are primarily for single color coloring. You're not going to be blending with these if you're just going direct to paper. However, there are other fun things that you can do with these. So first thing you can do, just from a very basic standpoint, and in this case, so as I was talking about paper, sorry, my brain's going faster than my mouth. This was just on regular paper. And for regular coloring on regular paper, your alcohol-friendly paper, it's fine. But I do recommend, if you're going to get into some water techniques, that you use a watercolor paper. Or what I have cut up for us tonight is the Vicky Bouton Foundations paper. This is a mixed media paper, but I really like that it absorbs water very well. It handles and holds up without warping, and it has just a really nice, smooth finish. Most watercolor paper do have a little bit of a texture, especially if you're just using like a Tim Holtz watercolor paper. But Vicky's paper absolutely is, probably one of our top selling multimedia papers, mixed media papers, and they work really well with water.
Another backup.
Yep.
The ink that you're using for stamping your images is the same as the alcohol marker ink pads?
So it depends. This one here, I used my Memento and it was fine because I was just doing straight coloring. If you are using water, and the different techniques I'm going to show you next are going to be using water, this is now where I'm going to switch to my VersaFine Clair, which if you look at it carefully, perfect for using watercolors to colored stamped images. So this one, because it's got a pigment base to it, it is not going to react with the water the same way this might.
But the Gina K one.
The Gina K one is what I would call kind of the anomaly. So if you have Gina K amalgam, it does say that you can use it for alcohol and watercolor. So each ink is a little bit more specific when it comes to how it reacts with water. Again, I tend to go with the VersaFine because it's just the one that I've used. No real reason other than that. Okay, so just to make it pretty.
Is that why you have 150 ink pads?
That's why I have 150 black ink pads.
That's what I meant.
I'm going to say, black is what I use most often. Okay, so I don't need the paper anymore. I'm just going to hold that down there so you guys can see what I'm doing. Let me look at my notes. What are we going to do here? So I'm going to start. Actually, I'm going to use this one here. This is a tree stamp. Where's my trees? This is from the Art and Creative Maker Series. This one's called Winter Etchings. So I've just pulled one of the trees out. You know what? No, sorry. Pause. I'm going to say that's got a big wow factor, so I'm going to save that for the end. Let's go. We're not at the end. We got a couple things still to do.
We're like 50 minutes.
Well, in. Guess what? We're going overtime.
I don't get paid for overtime.
Neither do I, hon. Neither do I. All right, so I'm going to just stamp this a couple of times. Like so.
Do you have to heat set this for the...
You should not need to heat set it. Let me say, I don't usually heat set it. Give it a couple of seconds and you should be fine. But again, your climate may be different. The humidity in your room may be different. If you find that you are getting bleeding, then heat set it. Trial and error. So I've got a little jar of water. I've got a couple of little paint brushes here just from my stash. So remember how I said when we were coloring on the regular paper that it doesn't blend super well. Here's one thing you can do. Let's keep going with the blue. So this is now on that watercolor paper. I can color, again, this is my dark area. But then watch this.
Blue coffee? You might want to check
it's an urn. It's not the coffee. Oh. So I'm going to take my brush. Get a piece of paper towel. Just to dab off. Okay. So I can now pull that blue color. Now it's not super intense. Maybe I need more water. Well, and you know what? Sometimes things work and sometimes they don't. So
what happened there?
It's softening a little bit. And maybe I just need to play with it a little bit more. But if I can show you one thing, it's that the black is not running. The other thing you can do is you can take your marker, go like that, and now I can paint with it. So this is my...
You got to do that on a non-porous surface.
This is where your non-porous surface, like your glass mat, is coming into play. So now I can watercolor with this.
Maybe that blue just isn't very intense with water.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Do I have a darker? I don't have a darker blue out. So let's just add a little bit more. And we can create that shading. All right, so you can use it as a watercolor paint, just like you would a distress pad or some of those other ink pads. Now for the aha moment. Sorry for the squeak. All right, now I'm going to go back to my tree. Let's find a piece of paper here. I should have cut these smaller. Hold on. Boop, boop, boop. So this is a fun technique, and this is something that my friend Karen introduced to me many years ago.
Be careful, she's on here.
Excellent. Well, maybe she can tell me why that didn't work. She knows better than I do. She is a marvel with these watercolor markers. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to apply the ink directly to my stamp. Now this is a brand new stamp, so I better season it first, give it a good, get rid of all that manufacturing residue, give it a good clean. And I will say that sometimes this technique works better on rubber stamps versus clear stamps, but we're going to go for it. So I'm going to take the marker. This is light green. That's spring green. Let's see, do I have a darker green? Do not try this technique with your Copic markers. All you'll do is stain. All you do is stain your stamps. Okay, I don't have a darker green, so
this is a technique for water-based.
This is for water-based markers. So I'm actually going to color all the areas of my stamp. Give it a little check. Yep.
So instead of using an ink pad,
you're using markers. And so, this is if you have a specific color that maybe you don't have the ink pad for. If you are traveling and you only want to take markers. Now, as you color, sometimes it will start to dry. You're just going to go, sorry, you can't see that, but I'm just huffing, as they call it, onto my stamp so that it reactivates the moisture. Give it a good press. Woohoo, look at that. So you could leave it at that. Or
you could.
But wait, there's more.
But you won't.
Make sure that I don't have any blue here. Just got a slightly damp brush here. But I'm going to go in and I'm actually going to activate all of this ink just with a light dabbing motion. And what it makes you look like is an incredible watercolor artist. Because what it does is it softens all those edges. I'm going to do just a little bit more and then I can share with you. And again, it's been a while since I've really played with this technique. Karen is exceptional at it. She does a lot of design work for art impressions. But if I bring this up, let's see. So down here has been no water. And you can see that there are sharp edges. You can see some of the splotchiness. But if you look up here, it's been blended out and really looks like you've got a beautiful watercolor painting. I'm going to try a darker color. We'll see if that, maybe I will go back to that blue just to give you, see if we can make it stand out a little bit more. Let's clean my stamp. Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave it.
Now what are you going to do?
Oh, you know what? That's a darker green. Let's just stick with green. So you can also do a two-tone. So I'm going to do some dark kind of in here. And then I'm going to go back to that lighter green and fill in the other areas. And this is where it's really fun because unlike with an ink pad, when you're coloring with markers, you can really target certain areas. And I mean, if I had thought of it ahead of time, I could do the trunk in brown. I don't think I have a brown, but you get the idea. So again, I'm going to go.
You're huffing.
I'm huffing, adding the moisture from my hot breath onto my stamped image here. And I think I missed a few spots, but look at that. You got those two tones going together. And here we go. Whoops, don't drip. And I'm just going to dab, 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 dab. Blend those colors together. And oh my, like it can be so pretty. So this is one of my favorite ways for using these watercolor markers. And again, I've left it so that the bottom here has no water on it, but up here you can really see and really kind of play.
You're just targeting certain areas.
Just targeting certain areas, blending it together, and you really just need a very little bit of water as you go along.
And by blending, you just mean dabbing.
Really, it's just that dabbing motion. If you, okay.
I don't mean for you to wreck your picture.
Oh, you know what? That's the nice thing about ink and stamps. You can always do more. I mean, you could go like that. And it creates more, like it doesn't lose all of the definition.
Oh,
but the more you play, the more you play with it, you will run into issues. But just a little dab will do ya, and you can play and color with that. You could then also, I can take this light blue.
But then you need to make sure you clean your stamps too, right?
You do need to continue to make sure you clean your stamps. So again, I'm going to just take a little bit here like this. And if I do this right, I can now soften that out. Or maybe not. So this is then where I'd go like this. Scoop up some of that ink. And really, yeah, I've made a mess of it. But, till you try it, you're never going to know. So lots of fun there. And I'm going to put in shameless plug here. If you want to learn more about these watercolor markers, Karen is hosting a station at our Fall Craft Around event, which is coming up in October. We're still working through just fine-tuning the designs, but if you want to come and give these a try, sorry, let me come down here at the bottom. If you want to give these a try, if you want to play with this technique before you pick up some markers for yourself, sign up for our Craft Around. You get 5 stations, one of which is Karen's station, and she's got some good stuff, so come and learn from her. Whew, okay. I think I'm going to call it a day at that. I'm sure I've overloaded you with some amazing information, different coloring for different styles. I wouldn't say that there necessarily is a different purpose. I mean, obviously you're coloring in images in different ways. It just depends on what you like and what you don't like. It depends on the look that you like. If you like that softer, more subtle look, then the watercolor might be for you. If you like it a little bit bolder, if you really love just blending and coloring, then the alcohol markers might be for you, whether you are starting out or whether you are getting into Copics. One last thing on the alcohol markers is if you start with the La Plume and you love it and you then want to start investing in Copics, they will work together. They are friends. So you can blend the two. As long as it's an alcohol base, you can blend them together. You can fill in your gaps. You can mix and match. So don't worry that if you start here, you have to stay here. You can absolutely go across the board. Please do, if you are watching on replay, add your comments to the chat. Email us if you have more specific questions. And since I really just scratched the surface, I think you can very easily expect another marker session in the future. Because, man, we could just color all day. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I apologize for running a little bit over, but hopefully you learned something and I've inspired you because really that's what I'm here for. Have a great rest of your evening. Happy coloring, and we'll talk to you soon.